The race to space started in the late 1950s when both the US and Russia both began to develop rockets capable of going into space. Both countries had lead scientists that helped them make these rockets. Russia made the R-7 rocket, which could carry the first satellite called Sputnik into space. At the same time, the US was working on a satellite of their own. After Russia was successfully able to launch a satellite, they then launched a rocket that could have a dog as a passenger. Since they had to work quickly, they were unable to have the technology to bring the dog back down. As a result, the dog died 5 hours after orbiting the Earth. In America, they had just launched our first satellite called the Explorer 1.
Now to guide this report here in New York is NBC News commentator Merrill Muller.
Good afternoon. A dog knocked a goat right out of the world's attention today. In a masterpiece of propaganda timing, the Soviet Union announced it had launched Sputnik number 2, carrying a live dog. This is reportedly history's first space traveler.
In 1961, Russia sent the first man into space, making the US look weak. America was falling behind in the US space race and needed to get ahead. A few weeks later, Alan Shepard was launched into Freedom 7 and became the first American in space. His flight was 160 miles high and lasted 15 minutes. Every time we evened the score, Russia was always one more step ahead. Soon Russia was breaking records like the first two-man flight, first woman in space, and first spacewalk. The US was in desperate need to pull ahead of Russia. The American people were becoming afraid that Russia was becoming too advanced, so the US started to think ahead of the Soviets and try to get to the moon first. In 1961, John F. Kennedy made a speech saying that we will achieve this goal.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there. Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it.
The Apollo lunar program was started, costing $25 billion. Apollo 7 was the first rocket to carry the crew that would orbit the moon for the first time. Apollo 11 was launched at Cape Canaveral on July 20th, 1999. It landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong being the first and Buzz Aldrin being the second, while 500 million people watch around the world.
Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
When the astronauts returned, they landed in the ocean and were then greeted by President Nixon. They were then escorted back to the shore.